For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On April 22, 2000, twin sisters Jessica and Amber Ramirez, both 14, disappeared during a camping trip with their youth group in Guadalupe Mountains National Park, Texas. The 8th graders had been participating in a weekend wilderness education program when they vanished from their campsite during the night, leaving behind their sleeping bags and personal belongings. Despite extensive searches by park rangers and federal authorities, no trace of the identical twins was ever found in the remote desert wilderness. For 25 years, their disappearance remained one of the park's most disturbing unsolved mysteries, devastating their family and the small border community of Salt Flat. Then, in June 2025, a geological survey team working in a previously unexplored cave system made a horrifying discovery that would finally reveal what happened to the Ramirez twins during that spring night in the Chihuahuan Desert. This is the complete story of their vanishing and the camping gear that exposed a nightmare that had been hidden deep underground for a quarter of a century. April 22, 2000, was the second day of what should have been an educational and inspiring weekend camping trip for the Salt Flat Youth Conservation Corps, a program designed to introduce economically disadvantaged teenagers to wilderness experiences and environmental education. 14-year-old identical twins Jessica and Amber Ramirez had been particularly excited about the opportunity to explore Guadalupe Mountains National Park, an experience that their single mother could never have afforded on her own. The twins lived with their mother, Rosa Ramirez, in the tiny border town of Salt Flat, Texas, where Rosa worked multiple jobs to support her daughters while encouraging their academic achievements and participation in programs that might provide opportunities beyond their isolated community. Both girls were honor students who dreamed of attending college and escaping the poverty that had defined their childhood. Jessica and Amber were inseparable despite having distinct personalities that complemented each other perfectly. Jessica was the more outgoing and adventurous of the pair, always eager to try new experiences and push boundaries, while Amber was quieter and more cautious but fiercely loyal to her sister and willing to follow her anywhere. The youth conservation program had been organized by their school guidance counselor, Mrs. Patricia Williams, who recognized the twins' potential and wanted to expose them to experiences that might inspire future educational and career paths. The weekend trip included 12 students from rural schools throughout West Texas, many of whom had never been camping or visited a national park. The group's campsite was located in a designated backcountry area of Guadalupe Mountains National Park, approximately 4 miles from the nearest road and accessible only by hiking through challenging desert terrain. The remote location was chosen to provide students with an authentic wilderness experience while keeping them away from tourist areas that might distract from educational objectives. Adult supervision was provided by Mrs. Williams, park ranger Kevin Martinez, and volunteer naturalist Dr. Sarah Thompson, all of whom were experienced in wilderness education and youth programming. The supervision ratio and safety protocols had been carefully planned to ensure student safety while allowing for meaningful educational experiences. The first day of the trip had proceeded perfectly, with students learning about desert ecology, geological formations, and survival skills while hiking to scenic locations throughout the park. Jessica and Amber had been actively engaged in all activities, asking thoughtful questions and demonstrating the curiosity and intelligence that made them standout students. Evening activities on April 21st included a campfire program where Dr. Thompson shared information about desert wildlife and astronomy, while students enjoyed s'mores and hot chocolate. The twins had been particularly fascinated by her presentation about the complex cave systems that existed throughout the Guadalupe Mountains, some of which remained unexplored by scientists. The group retired to their tents around 10:30 p.m., with Jessica and Amber sharing a 2-person tent that had been positioned near the center of the campsite for security and supervision. Adult supervisors took turns maintaining watch throughout the night, a standard safety protocol for youth camping programs in remote areas. At 2 a.m., Mrs. Williams conducted a routine check of the campsite and observed that all student tents appeared secure and occupied. The night was calm with clear skies and mild temperatures that made for ideal camping conditions, and there were no signs of any problems or disturbances that might threaten the group's safety. However, when students were awakened at 6:30 a.m. for breakfast and morning activities, Jessica and Amber's tent was found to be empty except for their sleeping bags, personal belongings, and the camping gear they had been issued for the trip. The twins had vanished completely without alerting supervisors or leaving any indication of where they might have gone. The discovery that Jessica and Amber were missing immediately triggered emergency protocols that Mrs. Williams and the other supervisors had hoped they would never need to implement. The remote location and harsh desert environment made time critical for any hope of finding the twins before they suffered from exposure or other dangers. Initial searches of the immediate campsite area revealed no traces of the twins or any indication of their direction of travel from the tent they had shared. Most disturbing was the complete absence of their shoes, water bottles, and flashlights, suggesting they had left their tent unprepared for any extended time in the desert environment. The twins' personal belongings remained exactly where they had placed them before going to sleep, including journals, cameras, and small gifts they had planned to bring home to their mother. The undisturbed nature of their possessions suggested they had left voluntarily rather than being taken by force, though their lack of preparation remained inexplicable. Park Ranger Martinez immediately contacted Guadalupe Mountains National Park headquarters to request emergency search and rescue resources while beginning preliminary searches with available personnel. The other students were gathered and secured, while adult supervisors attempted to determine if the twins had mentioned any plans or concerns that might explain their disappearance. Interviews with other students revealed that Jessica and Amber had been excited about the camping experience and had shown no signs of homesickness, anxiety, or desire to leave the group. Several students mentioned that the twins had been particularly interested in Dr. Thompson's presentation about cave exploration and had asked detailed questions about accessing underground areas. The emergency search operation began within hours of the twins' disappearance being discovered, with teams of park rangers, search and rescue specialists, and volunteers systematically covering areas around the campsite where the girls might have wandered during the night. Search dogs were brought in from El Paso but struggled with the dry desert conditions and complex scent patterns created by the camping group's activities. The dogs showed interest in several directions from the campsite but were unable to establish definitive trails that might indicate where Jessica and Amber had traveled. The investigation revealed that both twins were responsible, intelligent students with no history of risky behavior or poor judgment. Their disappearance during a supervised camping trip in challenging terrain seemed completely inconsistent with their careful, safety-conscious personalities and their strong family bonds. Detective Maria Gonzalez of the Culberson County Sheriff's Department joined the investigation as it became clear that the twins' disappearance might involve more than students simply becoming lost in the desert. The circumstances suggested either an accident in a hidden location or potential criminal activity that had targeted the isolated camping group. After 1 week of intensive searching involving over 200 personnel from multiple agencies, the formal search operation was scaled back. Despite the massive effort covering hundreds of square miles of desert terrain, no trace of Jessica and Amber had been discovered anywhere in the park or surrounding areas. Throughout 2001 and 2002, the Ramirez family organized private search expeditions and hired investigators to continue looking for the twins when official resources were reduced. Rosa Ramirez dedicated her life to finding her daughters, taking time off from work and spending her savings on search efforts that she hoped might succeed where official operations had failed. The case generated significant media attention throughout Texas and the Southwest, with the story of missing identical twins capturing public sympathy and generating thousands of tips from across the region. However, none of the reported sightings provided concrete evidence that advanced the investigation or brought the family closer to answers. The twins' disappearance had a devastating impact on the Salt Flat community, where Jessica and Amber had been seen as symbols of hope and potential for overcoming the economic challenges that affected most local families. Their loss represented not just personal tragedy but the destruction of dreams and aspirations that had inspired other young people in the area. In 2005, human remains found in a different area of West Texas initially raised hopes for resolution, but forensic analysis determined they belonged to unidentified adults who had died much earlier and were unrelated to the twins' case. Such discoveries occasionally renewed attention to the investigation but didn't provide the answers Rosa desperately sought. Advanced search technologies became available during the 2000s and 2010s, including improved ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging systems that could potentially locate evidence in underground locations. However, the vast scale of the Guadalupe Mountains and the countless caves and underground features made comprehensive technological searching impractical. Rosa Ramirez established a memorial fund in her daughters' names and maintained annual vigils that kept their case in public awareness while honoring their memory. Her persistence ensured that any potential discoveries would be recognized as possibly related to Jessica and Amber's disappearance. The case was featured in numerous missing persons television programs and true crime publications, generating national attention and maintaining hope that someone, somewhere, might have information that could solve the mystery. Age progression photographs showed how the twins might look as adults, though family members struggled with such images. By 2020, 20 years after the twins' disappearance, most people had accepted that Jessica and Amber were likely dead and that their remains might never be found in the vast wilderness of the Guadalupe Mountains. However, scientific research activities were creating new opportunities for exploring previously inaccessible areas of the park. June 15, 2025, began as a routine survey day for Dr. Michael Chen and his geological research team from the University of Texas, who were conducting a comprehensive study of previously unexplored cave systems throughout Guadalupe Mountains National Park. Their work was part of a larger project to map and document the park's extensive underground features. The team was investigating a complex cave system that had been discovered only recently through ground-penetrating radar surveys. The entrance was located in a remote area of the park, approximately 6 miles from where the Ramirez twins had disappeared, in terrain that had been searched multiple times but had yielded no evidence during previous investigations. Around 3:20 p.m., while exploring a deep chamber approximately 200 feet underground, graduate student Lisa Park discovered artificial materials that seemed completely out of place in the pristine cave environment. The objects appeared to be camping equipment that had been in the cave for many years, though the dry conditions had preserved them remarkably well. Dr. Chen immediately recognized the potential significance of the discovery and contacted both university authorities and park rangers about the finding. The camping gear appeared to be the type issued to youth groups and included items that seemed to match equipment described in missing persons cases from the area. Careful documentation revealed sleeping bags, backpacks, water bottles, and personal items that bore markings and characteristics consistent with the gear that had been issued to the Salt Flat Youth Conservation Corps during their 2000 camping trip. Most significantly, the items included identification and personal belongings that clearly belonged to Jessica and Amber Ramirez. The cave chamber where the equipment was discovered was accessed through a series of narrow passages and vertical drops that would have been extremely dangerous for anyone without proper spelunking equipment and experience. The location raised immediate questions about how teenage camping participants could have reached such a remote and technically challenging underground area. More disturbing was the discovery of human remains scattered throughout the chamber, along with evidence that suggested the twins had survived in the cave for some time before ultimately succumbing to dehydration, hypothermia, and other consequences of being trapped underground without means of escape or rescue. Personal items found with the remains included journals that documented Jessica and Amber's final days in horrifying detail. The handwritten entries revealed that the twins had been lured away from their campsite by someone they trusted, who had promised to show them secret caves that were supposedly off-limits to regular visitors. The journal entries described their growing terror as they realized they had been deliberately trapped in the underground chamber by their guide, who had removed the ropes and equipment necessary for them to climb back to the surface. The twins had spent days calling for help and attempting to find alternative exits before gradually weakening and dying together in the darkness. Most horrifying was the revelation that their captor had returned to the cave multiple times to observe their suffering, bringing food and water occasionally but never providing any means of escape. The journals documented the psychological torture of false hope followed by continued imprisonment that had prolonged their agony for weeks. DNA analysis of evidence found in the cave led to the identification of traces left by Harold Kemper, a 58-year-old man who had been working as a volunteer naturalist and cave guide for various youth programs throughout West Texas during 2000. Kemper had been present during the twins' camping trip but had not been considered a suspect during the original investigation. The arrest of Harold Kemper brought resolution to one of Texas's most heartbreaking unsolved cases while exposing the predatory behavior that had operated within trusted youth education programs for decades. The investigation revealed that Kemper had been using his position to identify and target vulnerable children from isolated communities where his crimes were less likely to be detected or investigated thoroughly. Kemper's background revealed a disturbing pattern of inappropriate behavior around children and previous incidents at various youth programs that had been dismissed as misunderstandings or personality conflicts. His ability to manipulate institutional trust had allowed him to operate undetected for years while targeting children who were away from their families and support systems. The cave where Jessica and Amber died had been carefully chosen by Kemper because of its remote location and technical challenges that made escape impossible without specialized equipment. The location demonstrated extensive knowledge of the park's underground systems and suggested that he had used similar sites for previous crimes that had not been discovered. The twins' journals provided heartbreaking insights into their final weeks and revealed the psychological torture that Kemper had inflicted by giving them false hope while ensuring their ultimate death. The prolonged nature of their suffering made their murders particularly heinous and demonstrated the calculated cruelty of their killer. Under interrogation, Kemper eventually confessed to murdering Jessica and Amber but refused to provide details about other potential victims or explain his motivations for targeting the twins specifically. His confession was limited to admitting responsibility while attempting to minimize the extent of his crimes and psychological torture. Kemper was charged with kidnapping, aggravated sexual assault, and capital murder of children. At age 58 and facing overwhelming evidence, he was convicted and sentenced to death, ensuring that he would never again pose a threat to other children while providing some measure of justice for the Ramirez family. The case prompted comprehensive reviews of background check procedures and supervision protocols for all youth education programs operating in remote wilderness areas. Jessica and Amber's murders highlighted how predators could exploit institutional trust and isolated settings to target vulnerable children. Dr. Chan and his research team were recognized for their discovery and their professional handling of the evidence that finally solved the twins' case. Their geological work had provided answers that 25 years of law enforcement investigation had been unable to achieve, bringing closure to a family that had never stopped searching for their daughters. Rosa Ramirez finally had answers about her daughter's fate after 25 years of uncertainty, though learning the truth about their prolonged suffering was more traumatic than any scenario she had imagined. The knowledge that Jessica and Amber had been deliberately tortured while she searched desperately for them created new dimensions of grief and rage. The twins' journals, while providing crucial evidence for prosecution, also documented their love for their mother and their desperate hopes that she would somehow find them before it was too late. The entries revealed their faith that Rosa would never stop looking for them, a faith that proved justified despite the tragic outcome. The case highlighted the vulnerabilities that exist when children from isolated, economically disadvantaged communities participate in programs that take them far from their families and support systems. Predators had learned to exploit these vulnerabilities while hiding behind institutional respectability and community trust. The geological research that led to the discovery demonstrated how scientific exploration could sometimes intersect with criminal investigations in unexpected ways, providing breakthroughs that dedicated law enforcement efforts alone might never achieve. The expansion of cave mapping and underground exploration creates ongoing opportunities for resolving cold cases. The 25-year delay in discovering the truth illustrated how effectively underground environments could conceal evidence of crimes, particularly when perpetrators had detailed knowledge of remote cave systems that were inaccessible to conventional search methods and unknown to investigating agencies. 4 youth education programs throughout Texas and beyond, the case provided crucial lessons about the need for enhanced background checks, improved supervision protocols, and better communication systems that could prevent predators from exploiting the trust and isolation that characterize wilderness education experiences. The twins' legacy lives on through improved safety measures for youth programs and enhanced screening procedures for adults who work with children in remote settings. Their story serves as a permanent reminder of the need for constant vigilance to protect vulnerable young people who seek educational opportunities away from their families. Jessica and Amber Ramirez's story serves as a horrifying reminder that predators can exploit the most well-intentioned educational programs to target children who are isolated from their families and support systems. Their murders revealed how institutional trust could be weaponized against the most vulnerable members of society. The 25-year delay in solving the case illustrates how underground environments can preserve evidence while also concealing it from discovery, particularly when crimes are committed by individuals with specialized knowledge of cave systems and underground features that are unknown to investigating agencies. For law enforcement agencies, the case demonstrated the importance of thoroughly investigating all adults who have contact with missing children, regardless of their institutional affiliations or community standing. Predators often use positions of trust and authority to deflect suspicion while continuing their criminal activities. The persistence of Rosa Ramirez in keeping her daughter's case active and maintaining public awareness contributed to the recognition of the cave discovery as significant evidence. Her 25 years of seeking answers ensured that when the truth was finally revealed, it received immediate and thorough investigation. The case highlights how scientific research activities can sometimes provide unexpected breakthroughs in criminal investigations, particularly in remote areas where conventional search methods have failed to locate evidence. The expansion of geological and archaeological research creates ongoing opportunities for resolving cold cases. The random discovery of crucial evidence after a quarter-century demonstrates the importance of maintaining cold case investigations and preserving evidence as new technologies and exploration techniques become available. Advanced cave exploration and documentation made it possible to solve a case that had seemed hopeless for decades. The twins' story ultimately demonstrates that justice can emerge even after many years of investigation, providing hope for other families who continue waiting for answers about their missing children while serving as a warning that evil can hide behind the most trusted and respected institutions in our society. Their memory lives on through the safety improvements and enhanced screening procedures that resulted from their tragic deaths, ensuring that other children who seek educational opportunities in wilderness settings have better protection from those who would exploit their vulnerability and trust.